And we are live. Hey, everybody, welcome to Dating God's Way,
Dating
episode
God's Way,
11.
episode 11.
11, which means that we've been doing 11 weeks of dating discussions and dating conversations,
Yeah,
dating what we deem dating, um, or good, let me say it like this: keys to Christian dating. How about that? Keys to Christian,
yeah,
right? And
yeah.
so, hey, Tara, hey, Miss Stevens on the line. Hey,
Yeah, Mama Vanessa. Hey, hey.
Vanessa. So, Pastor, yeah, I was thinking about, how some of how this started, because I always like to start off with a little history.
Sure.
Um, we have a church, Vision Impact Center, which we pastor. Amen. We've been pastoring for 5 years now.
That's right.
Yeah, we've been pastoring for 5 years now. And we've always had this discussion with the um, unmarried group and the married group
Yes.
um, in our church, in our
Yep.
community, our church community. And so um, many of our group, they consider us their spiritual parents, mom and dad, which is cute. um, and so I feel like I have an obligation
Yeah.
to give to give some father like advice, some father like keys um, when it comes to dating God's way, right?
Yeah.
Amen. Because they always ask me a lot of questions about um, some dating questions, and I give them keys and stuff like that. And so here we are
Here we
at
are.
week 11
We can-
of dating God's way.
And I think
Right.
it's important too to know too, Pastor Will, that as you said, married and unmarried, because even after you get married, you should still date.
Oh, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
I think that's an important point that when we talk about dating God's way, that some of these tips can also be applied to the married because we still date.
Yes, yes. Sometimes dating can get lost in marriage, as your sometimes as your family grows or time constraints.
Sure.
Um, it ends up, you start off with a healthy dating life, and then somewhere down the line, things change, and all of a sudden you miss 1 week, and then it turns to 2 weeks, and then you get to 4 or 5 week months, and it's like where did our dating goes, where what happened. And so yeah, dating is really important after I say I do, you
Right.
know. Yeah. So but let's get into it, Pastor E.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk about our dating discussion. I was going to hit, and maybe I will at some point. Maybe I'll hit the racial discussion if we're led that way. But if we're not, that's fine too. I can hit it again at a later time or on another stream. But this stream is healthy convos. What we're going to discuss tonight is having healthy conversations, healthy relationships, having open, honest, and healthy relationship communications, healthy communications, right? So, Pastor E, tell me what you think off the bat when I say, having when during the dating season, healthy conversations. Give me what do you think of when I say that?
Excuse me, allergies are really getting me. So I think, when we start talking about having a healthy relationships start with open, honest, and healthy communication. I put that up there because I thought Pastor Will was going to actually put that on the put that on the screen when I started talking.
Because that came in as a private chat, so you didn't post it
So
as
it
a
doesn't
public.
work that way.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So, healthy relationships have open, honest, and healthy communication. So, when I think about having a healthy relationship, it really starts with healthy communication. And that's some of what I think we are going to get into tonight is how, you know, where does healthy relationships start? It starts with healthy communications. And that starts with open and honest conversations and the ability to have those. And when I think about this, there's a couple things that, kind of even out the playing field where one partner doesn't have to dominate over the other partner because they can share in control over decisions, oh, share in feeling like they're being heard because of healthy communication.
Yeah. Yeah. Many of us get our communication style um, from um, from what we know best is our family, the household that we live in.
Let's talk about it.
And so, and while that communication works for the household, some of those communication techniques or some of those communication methods doesn't necessarily work when you're talking about I don't want to say a stranger, but in a sense of some aspects is of a stranger, somebody that don't know you.
To know. Yeah, so when you're getting to know.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so let's talk about this having honest, open communications. How so? Tell me, like, so when you first and I'll say me, and because I'm gonna stay safe tonight. I'm gonna stay good tonight. So when we first met, what was some of our opening communications? Like I don't remember all, but do you remember um, any of our opening discussions?
Yes. I remember that, some of the things that we talked about in our opening was we talked about career a lot. That was something that we were focused on at that time. We talked about ministry, especially me, because that's something that I was really jazzed up about at that time. We met in a ministry setting. So, in a group, in a gospel group. So, we spent our open conversations during that time was around interests. We had a lot of conversations around interests.
So would you consider those to be healthy conversations, especially as part as the as the opening? Would you suggest that for somebody now that just met somebody? Hey, these are some of the things that that are safe to talk about is career and those things.
Sure. Yes, I think, career, your interests like ministry or hobbies, those are all things that we talked about that I felt like were safe and good opening conversations. And
Yeah.
one of the things I'll say is that one of the things that I believe helped us to have healthy communication in the beginning was because I think we should also talk about when we didn't have healthy communication, but let's talk about this now.
Yeah.
Um, you
Yeah.
know,
We're gonna get in it.
I think one of the things that really helped was the other person showing interest in what interested the other person. For example, I remember one of the things you said to me is like, why are you telling me all this stuff? Why are you telling me about this and that or the other? And it was because it was what interests me. And I think that was one of the things that I was looking for. Could you have a conversation with me about things that interest me? Or was it just about all the things that interest you? Was it about you? And
Yeah.
I think that starts healthy conversation.
So how should one tell if you captured their interest or if they are listening, if it's going in one ear and going out the other?
So some of the things I remember is like you coming back to me and asking me about, like when I saw you at rehearsal the next week, you asked me about how things were going at my new job or how,
Mhm.
how things were going at my church. And so all of those things showed me that you cared or you had an interest beyond just having conversations with me, but you were actually listening to what I was saying.
Yeah,
So, the regurgitating of information of things that I stated and also, having a further conversation about those things.
yeah, yeah. So so what were some of the unhealthy conversations at the beginning? Because I mean we made a mess of some stuff.
I think one of the things is like, we both came from very different communication styles.
Yeah,
And I think that is an important point tonight is like, understanding the person's communication style.
Yeah.
I'm a very, anybody who knows me knows I'm super extroverted, but I also really like to talk. And when we first met, even though we talked, you weren't jazzed about always talking, right? It wasn't necessarily something that you wanted to do, was just talk, 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 talk. Where I was like, we can talk forever.
Right.
So I think those are some places where we got into some scuffles is, number one, like respecting that person's communication style, but then also respecting that person's individuality.
Yeah.
We're two different people. And to have a healthy conversation, I have to respect that.
Yeah.
You're not going to be me, and I'm not going to be you, right? And then I have to feel safe that I'm able to be open and honest with you. Yeah, I'm going to turn it down first. That I'm
No,
going
sir.
to,
Hey,
I have
buddy.
to feel safe enough to be open and honest with you without feeling like you're going to judge me or you're going to talk down to me because our communication styles may be different or because I may express myself differently than you. And I think that's something that we had to deal with in the beginning straight up because I'm a very big expressor and you were not a big expressor.
Right.
And we needed to find a balance in that.
Yeah.
In the big expressor and then in the calm expressor.
Yeah. 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 So yeah, so it was, the unhealthy part of that style was because I was you was the super extrovert and I was a super introvert, and the unhealthy part of the conversation was that it was something that we never talked about.
Correct. We never talked about it really until we got married.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah.
was, now looking back on it, that was crazy.
It was
Like we
crazy.
waited until we got married to really deal with some major communication differences.
Yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. At one point, when I think at when I visited your family at one time before, because your and this was after we was married. I found out that your family have passionate conversations.
Oh yes.
Where y'all just, it seemed like y'all screaming and yelling at each other,
Yes, we
but
are.
but
We
y'all
are.
but y'all are okay. You are, but you're screaming, but because you're
Absolutely.
passionate about the conversation. That's the way. It wasn't no beef or nothing.
No, we don't
Uh,
argue.
like for me, I was like, somebody's even out of this room not talking. Somebody's shutting down because
Correct.
that's the way I am. I'm like, all this yelling or whatever. I'm just shutting it down, shutting it off. I'm going home. Holler at you later, right? But but you guys, you know, even though y'all not, degree lawyers, but you have a family. You come from a family of lawyers.
Absolutely. Advocators, very much so. Everybody getting their point across tonight.
Yeah,
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 we're not leaving till everybody's got their point across.
right.
That's true. Right.
That's
And I
true.
think that dynamic, because my family was so expressive, expressive in yelling, expressive in we're gonna get all of the points out. And that was not your experience. We
Right.
did not talk enough about how to deal with that. So when we then began to communicate with each other, and I communicated in that very expressive way, and you communicated to me back in the shutdown, I was like,
Yeah.
something ain't right with this because we are shutting down. My
Yeah.
grandma was saying, we talking about everything, and we
Yeah.
talking about it settled.
I mean, and when she say shut down, my shutdown is severe. I mean,
Yeah, y'all.
yeah, it's like a severe shut you off shutdown. Like I wouldn't go into it. I'll stand right there in your face and shut it down right there. And
Down like blank face, nothing.
Yeah, yeah. And then I would go into a hole where I wouldn't talk for days.
He would not talk for days, like nothing.
Right. And
And
so
I was at a loss, y'all. I was like, what is happening? Because I grew up for many years in a household where we talked about everything, right? Like serious things happen in our household. I mean, not to give all my family business, but like some serious stuff happened in my
yeah,
household. Serious family matters happened. And we talked about them. Like I was 12 years old and we sat down and talked about it.
yeah.
So coming from that to now my spouse is like not talking at all. I was like, no, what? What did you say now?
What we doing? What we doing now?
What we doing now?
Yeah. So those were learning curves probably that we should have known up front
Yeah,
before before we should have known something of the situation before the wedding day, really,
yeah,
because it became a hurdle to cross after we got married into having kids, even beyond. So
ooh, yeah.
it might not have been a conversation, but it was unhealthy behavior with conversations.
So I think it's good if we, talk about how you, because it can be difficult to distinguish from healthy, like what's healthy or what's abusive. Because sometimes you can see what's healthy and you can see what's abusive, but it may be hard to distinguish what's unhealthy.
Yeah,
Because sometimes there are unhealthy expectations that we put on communication that you may not see as unhealthy because it's hard to distinguish what's unhealthy. And so I think it would be good for us to get into some of that. What you think about that?
yeah. Let's do it.
So I think that, one of the ways that things can become unhealthy is what we just talked about. Number one is not communicating, a difference of communication styles.
Yeah,
I remember something you said to me that was really important. You said that I don't like when you like be yelling and talking online and stuff because it makes me feel like it's I'm doing something wrong or like I'm a punching bag or whatever all the conversation was. And so I had to be able to hear that my method of communication was not good for you.
yeah,
And it became unhealthy because it was unexpressed.
yeah.
And I think that's a one key point that even while you're in the dating stage, you have to express what your communication style is. And that's the open and honest. And then having a conversation with that partner about it.
Right. If you like him enough, if you like her enough, having these open and honest conversations should be pretty. Having conversations like this
Yeah.
should be had, somewhere in the middle of the relationship, so that to move forward, or to work with this for right now, work on it so that you can move forward.
Yes. I think another good thing that we did too, something that can become unhealthy is if when you don't communicate what your boundaries are. And
Yeah,
so one of the things that we talked about, is like you can't go shut down for days. Like this is not gonna work, right? And so I had to stop all the yelling, talking, real being really expressive, and you gotta stop shutting down. And so when there's not a creation of boundaries and we don't agree on boundaries, I think that's another place where communication becomes unhealthy.
yeah, yeah. When we don't agree on boundaries, right? That's right. Keep going. You good?
Keep going.
Yeah, because I ain't got nothing to say.
Yeah,
You
I'm
say
just
no.
I ain't trying to take it all. Sorry, y'all. We just been married tonight. Sorry. I think another thing too, that can lead to not just being unhealthy, but can lead to dating abuse or really lead to something that is on another level is name calling.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's abuse, and almost one of the worst kinds of abuse is name calling. Even if it's for a joke or for play, um,
Yeah, you can't take it back.
you can't take it back, man. And that's one thing that my uncle Flim down in Virginia, my wedding day, he when I had on my did I have on my suit at that? No, I didn't have on my suit at that time. But I remember coming down the steps, and he says, um, in marriage, you gotta hold your tongue, because what you say you can't take back.
You can't
Even
take
you
it
can
back.
be forgiven, but you would never be able to snatch those words back. And so, name calling is a no. You can't take once it's out there forever. In your dating season, in your marriage season, all the way to the day that you die.
Yeah,
Once you put those words out there,
it's
um,
hard
it's hard to take those words back.
because they come back. Like you think that. I mean, I remember we had moments where we thought something was over, and then we got into an intense moment of fellowship, and it came back.
Yeah,
Right? We was like, where did I come from? I thought we was over that, but words hurt. Words have an effect. So, name calling, insults is a no. About that person, about that person's family, their upbringing, all of that stuff is a no.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And like I said, even though you're forgiven and you forgave the person, it's still a wound. It's
yeah,
still, it's still a wound. And like we already said, you can't take it back.
yeah. I think also threats of violence. Oh yeah, I'm gonna do this to you. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna, slash your tire, this, that, or whatever. I'm gonna key your car. I'm gonna this, that, or whatever. I mean, like people don't think that stuff happens, but that happens in dating where
Yeah,
people get really passionate
yeah.
and they start threatening to do things. Oh, I'm gonna call the police. Oh, I'm gonna do that. Look, all of that stuff is abuse. It is dating abuse.
What Angela what's the poet? I can't think of her name.
Oh,
Um, oh my
I
goodness.
can't think of it either.
Yeah, but remember what she said
Angela,
when
why Angela?
yeah, Maya Angelou. Remember what Maya Angelou said? When they show you who you are,
Believe me.
believe them. So, so when they, it's
Yeah,
so when they show you who they are, when they show you these conversations,
yeah,
you know, don't laugh it off. Don't joke it off. Really dig into it, and really figure out, is this who you really are?
yeah, for sure. Yes. And all of that threatening and calling the police and all of that, when that gets going, I mean, that will be something that will be throughout the relationship. So it's also remembering, like, when you see that stuff in dating, that's something that gets carried throughout the marriage, that
Yeah,
gets carried throughout. So I think that's a dating abuse that has to get checked.
it has to get checked.
Has to get checked.
Yeah,
I think another one, we talked about withholding conversation, kind of the shutdown, but that's also withholding of any resource, right?
mm,
Because once you connect with a person, you become a resource. And
absolutely.
so any resource that you are willing to withhold from me shows me that a there is some type of abuse that can take place, right?
Yeah,
Like withholding, like now we're talking about marriage right quick, but withholding money,
yeah,
withholding sex from a spouse is all abuse. Like
yeah.
that's abusive. And so any of those manipulative traits that you can start seeing in the dating time, I
Hmm.
think that you want to be really leery and careful of.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good. All right. But if y'all got any questions, y'all can go ahead and put your questions in while me and Pastor E discussing and talking. Go
Yeah,
ahead
that's a
and give
question.
up your questions. We'll answer them on the fly or whatever. Or you can join our discussion uh,
Yeah, you gotta
right
join in.
right here in
Yeah,
the
let's do
in
And
the
straight God.
in
So why
strange.
so why Pastor Willie's putting that up, I think that, we talked about unhealthy, but talking about healthy a little bit more, Pastor Will, about, when we talk about respecting someone's individuality. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think that's a big thing when people are dating, that they start to want that person to be like them. They want the person to think like them. They want the person, you're like, okay, this dating God's way. Ain't we supposed to be thinking alike? But
Yeah,
like in reality, we still two different people,
that's it.
right?
That's it.
And so how can you respect somebody's individuality if they're really different than you and not try to make them you?
Yeah, that's a good question, Pastor. I feel like, and what I've tried to do is I'll let you be you. I have to let you be you, and have to determine whether am I going to like the you that you are. Honestly,
That's
and if I don't like it, am I willing to either change my taste? When you eat food that you never eaten before, you be like, I don't like it, but they keep giving it to you. Are you going to change your taste? You're going to change your preference for it, or are you willing to let it go and allow that person to fly free and to be with somebody that will like what they have?
yes,
You know what I'm saying?
yes,
Would you like that person enough to let them free and don't hold them down? And in
yeah,
the same sense, can you are you willing to, put yourself back out there on the dating scene again?
yeah,
Because this because you didn't like this thing that was presented, this whatever, this person, this conversation or whatever, you didn't
yeah,
like, and so are you willing to let that be a deal breaker or not?
yeah. That's good. Yeah, preference is big. So we have a ton of questions, so we should start getting to them. Your first one is at 825. 825 is your first one, Pastor.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Can you touch on healthy conversations to have with your family while married? What to share and what not to share? Okay. I think actually you should start at dating.
Yeah.
This question should start at dating,
Yeah.
right? What are healthy conversations to have with your family while you're dating? Because that's where your healthy boundaries start. They start doing dating. And
Yeah.
that's what happened with us, right, Pastor Will?
Yeah. Family is a culture, but it's a culture built on your dating and your courting,
Yeah.
and that culture evolves in marriage. So your healthy conversations to have with your family when you married should be in line with the healthy conversations that you were having before you got married, because you brought you brought that culture of healthy conversation, you brought that into marriage.
I
That
would say
makes
this.
sense.
I would say this, that when you're talking about having conversations with your family, your family, your outside family. So your family, like your mom, your dad, your whoever.
Okay.
I was careful of the conversations that I had with my family because we
Sure.
talked about everything. We talked about a lot of things. Let me say it that way. We talked about a lot of things. And so I think that when we start talking about healthy conversations, we had to create boundaries around what kind of conversation. Because, for example, I think, it's unhealthy if I'm talking to them about arguments that we're having or things that happen between us, or because those things will also go from dating to marriage.
Absolutely.
So we had to learn how to safeguard some of the things that we were working through. We had to keep them close or in counseling, in our marriage counseling, so that we could give each other the grace to move on, which
Yeah.
family sometimes does not do.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's good,
I think,
Pastor.
yeah, I think having boundaries.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, when you said, I didn't think of it in that sense, and I like what you said there, and in that sense, you cannot take those it's one thing that me and Pastor E really did is that the first couple of, even now, what happens in my house stays in my house. That's just the rule. No matter what we going through or whatever. Now we can go get outside counsel.
Absolutely.
And that's cool, that's fine.
Safe.
But when it comes to family, what happens in my house stays in my house. And I taught my kids the same thing. What's said in this house, what happens in this house doesn't not have to, we deal with it in this house.
Yes.
Or we deal with it in a way to not bring family in, because we don't want to put family in the middle of choosing sides.
That's correct. And that's the boundary, is now they don't have to choose sides. It's not about an unhealthy culture of don't share secrets. It's more so a healthy culture of we need to work through challenges that we're having together as a family. That's what families do. And this nucleus that we create of a family, that's how we do it.
Now, don't get me wrong. If I was an abuser and I was to abuse Pastor E or the kids or whatever, yes, I want them to run to their family.
Of course.
Absolutely.
There's no abuse here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to be ignorant about certain things. Don't get me wrong. But when it comes to our finances, our family business, and how we do things, if anything makes it out to the family, it's only because we already discussed it in house, and then you can go to the family with it.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
All right, next question.
Okay. What about having intellectual conversations? Oh, yes. For me, I'm not sure how to have an intellectual conversation, a deep conversation. All right. Yeah. Let's talk about it, Pastor E, having intellectual conversations.
Well, I mean, I think that, when you start talking about having intellectual conversations, this is about, I think that sometimes in dating, people want to have intellectual conversations because that's what they think they should do. Right? I think that becomes you want to show that you have the ability to have an intellectual conversation. And so I think that if that's not who you are, then don't be that.
Yeah. How do you construct the fourth digit of the metamorphosis in the eighth planet of the quadrant sector? And you just trying to say hi.
Right.
Right. Be who you are.
Be who you are.
Be who you are. You are an intellectual.
Yes. If you read a book, if you took a class, if you have something intellectual to talk about it. If you don't do it.
Right.
Yeah, if you don't do it.
Don't fake it.
Yeah. Don't fake it till you make it. This is not one of them things. Yeah. Don't fake it till you make it.
Especially if I'm in computers, don't try to fake like computers because you know how to open up Word. So let's don't even fool yourself, because you about weeded yourself out there.
I'll also say this though. One of the things that I really loved was spiritual conversations. And when we had spiritual conversations, it was something that had to interest us both. It's something that I could talk about for hours.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it was learning also how to figure out what kind of conversations are good for us.
Yes.
Because all the conversations that I wanted to have, I do a lot of reading. And so I like to talk about a lot of things. And so I had to figure out what were good, healthy conversations for us to have together. And then what was something good for me to talk to my girlfriend about, my best friend.
See, because Pastor E don't like sports at all. And so I wanted to have football conversations with her, baseball conversations, and she shut all of those down. I was
like, it sounds good, but I don't know what you're talking about. I don't know. Fourth base, fifth base.
but where we did, but really what our intellectual conversations, where we connected was godly things, spiritual things, ministry, and career. be
Yes,
connected
business
about,
things.
especially about career.
Yeah,
Career. We really deep dived in career.
yeah,
Um, um, Entrepreneurship was my thing. Not so much as Pastor E's thing, even though she's a much better entrepreneur than I would ever be. I don't get it. Um, but but we found things, or we discovered
we
things.
discover
We
things.
discovered things that even now we are still discovering,
Yeah,
intellectual, conversations. Things to have conversations on. She come home from work and want to have these conversations. I'll be like, yo, I have nothing. I have no input for this.
correct. Yeah,
You know,
I would have executive conversations, and he like, so you have to find out what are good things for you to have conversations about
absolutely.
as a team.
Absolutely. I had to let Pastor E know. I was like, look, you're an executive. I'm a worker bee. So, so what you saying to me right now ain't it?
Yeah.
All right. So when building communication and dating, what is considered sharing too much information? Here we
Yeah,
are, Pastor E.
here we are. Here
Here
we
we
are.
are.
Now, Pastor Will, now I definitely got something with this one.
Yeah.
I think that when you start thinking about when to have conversations, because I do think that we do need to have deep conversations at some point, but they should be within the progression of the relationship, of
Yeah.
the friendship, right? And so we're not starting off. I had some things in my past that I needed to share with Pastor Will, and they was deep things, right? And so figuring out when I was going to divulge all of those things, it was a part of it was figuring out where we were in the relationship, knowing his commitment to the relationship. Was he really committed to me as a person? All of those things are things that should be thought about before divulging things about your personal, your inner, things you've been through as a child, how many partners you've had, if you've had any, prior relationships you've been in, things about your money, sharing accounts. All of those things should come when there has been a progression towards marriage, and that you know that this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life with. I believe that's when those doors should get open.
Yeah. And Pastor, I was talking to somebody else, and also, in the progression towards marriage
Yeah.
is, can you forgive me for things that happened in the past before I met you? You know, um,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes when we hear about the past, we get offended about somebody's past, even before they met. We learning new information about them, and now we have to figure out, can I forgive you for that? I was watching a Netflix movie. I was
Yeah.
watching a Netflix movie, and um, I guess this guy was involved with this girl, and he found out that this girl, um, she had a moment in her life where she was promiscuous, and the question, and he could not get past thinking about her and her, promiscuity, and
Yeah.
so, but that in real life, that happens, and the question is, can you forgive the person for their past even before they met you?
Yes.
And that's big for you. That's a big question for you. Is how much can you handle? How much of a person's life can you really handle?
That's right. Are you gonna let them free from that? Forgiving
Yeah,
me, you're gonna let them free. You're not gonna bring it up if y'all get in a fight. You're not gonna reference it if it comes up. Like, it really has to be a done deal. And I
right.
would say that was in sharing, talking about sharing information, the way I feel like we did that in a good way. I feel like that was one of the things that we did in a good way, is
Yeah,
that we waited until we knew that we were engaged, like we were going to be married for real. Like, I had a ring before we started talking about deep things, like in my past things, in his past things, because we
yeah,
both came in with a past.
yeah,
And being able to say, okay, I remember asking him in the car, is this something that you're going to be okay with? Because I may still, this is, I'm a believer. These people still might be around. That was a part of my past. Are you going to be all right? Or are you going to be haunted by this because you know something about me?
Yeah. Yeah. But I was committed and she was committed to, we knew that our marriage was beyond us.
Yeah.
And, we knew that the God was the purpose for our marriage. And so
Yeah.
that,
Author of
so that trumped any feeling that I could have, and so yeah. So yeah, that's what we think on that one, Mama
yeah.
Nesta.
Oh,
Yeah. So another question, can you touch on what type of expectations we should look for when dating?
I think, within our what we're talking about tonight, that healthy relationships come from healthy communication and open and honest communication. I think the kind of expectation that you should have is that you all are going to be able to respect each other to the point where you both can have equal say,
Yeah.
where neither person has more say than the other. Not
Hmm.
because of their personality, not because they make more money, not
Yeah.
because one is the woman and one is the man, but that there's going to be equal say. That should be an expectation. I think another expectation is feeling safe. You should feel safe to share your feelings without feeling like there'll be a negative consequence.
Sure.
Now that I've shared this, now you're going to start treating me badly because I didn't say what you wanted me to say, or I didn't respond the way you wanted me to respond. So I
Sure.
think those are some expectations we should have. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, good job. Good job. So, can you touch on healthy conversations regarding politics or other hard topics? Yes. Should politics be something like that ever be a deal breaker, or
no
are
pun.
there red flags in the conversations? So
Woo!
this is a good one. This is the question that I thought of when I thought about this topic.
This is it.
Like can I can you date somebody of the opposite party? You know, or can you date somebody with differing political views?
Ah,
Or and I really think it's of course it's a if you know if you can see beyond politics, if you can see beyond politics and your hearts align really, and your hearts align with the will of God. If you are in the, and you like this person so much, and they like you so much, and y'all get it to a touchy point of politics, and that's really heated. Do you have the ability to forgive each other enough to see past your disagreements?
party lines.
What'd you say, Pastor E?
I said party lines, right? The CBR party lines.
Yeah, yeah. Can you see beyond party lines? Go ahead, Pastor E.
I think when me and you, I think Pastor Will really was a borderline Republican when I met him. From my perspective, he was a boy. He was a
Oh,
borderline Republican, really. But I do think that there is a space in like hard topics where it's like, is this something that goes against the word of God to that level? Or is it something where we just have a difference of opinion about something? And I think that could be, for me, that was what the clear cut was. We did not agree on everything, and you're not going to agree on everything with anybody, not even your spouse.
right.
So I think for me, it was understanding where that line was. If we don't agree on something that they call political, like abortion, well, that's biblical from my point of view. But if we don't agree on something like necessarily like welfare to work or something like that, then maybe that's just a difference of opinion, and I don't care that much about it from my perspective.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things, Pastor E probably she don't know this is a disagreement. Um, I don't mind having a gun in the house. I feel like it's my, what my First Amendment, Second Amendment. I don't even know which amendment it is. It's, I believe, but per the Constitution, I believe it's my right to have a gun and everything, and I find no problems with guns. I've been raised with guns in the house or whatever, shotguns. But anyway, and when I went to the country, I shot BB guns and rifles or whatever. However, in respect to Pastor E,
Yes.
I never pursued having a gun. In respect to Pastor E, I stopped pursuing having a motorcycle, um, because even in our politics, there has to be respect for one another. And so can you have the political conversations and maintain your respect for that person? Can you keep the respect for that person even though you may deeply disagree with on their with their politics, with their stance on politics?
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective on this, having respect, and you could be like, well, does it ever go vice versa? But I had a cousin who was murdered, and I was young at that age. I was maybe 10 and he was maybe 19 when
Yeah.
he was shot in the head, right? And so my perspective on guns is serious. Like, it comes from a deep place. It's something that I can't fathom. I understand like the protection of it, but I think respecting that, that part of a partner is important because sometimes it just comes from deep places.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's good.
Thank you, boy. You say that's good.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
how do you go ahead, Pastor E?
How do you bounce back from an unhealthy conversation and unhealthy engagements? For example, maybe you said something insensitive and didn't mean to, or something came across wrong with no ill will intentions attached.
Yeah. So the word "I'm sorry" come to mind. That's the first thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Apologizing it and meaning it.
Yes, yes, yes. A real apology. And so
Yeah.
that's the first thing that come to mind is, always going back to apologize for saying something offensive or
Yeah.
insensitive. And maybe they're not thinking nothing about it, but that's the first thing is apologizing. And I believe that the second thing is actually talking about it, talking
Yeah.
about what happened. But here's the thing about talking about it: you can't control their response.
And let me tell y'all, this one was real hard for me in the beginning. Ooh, y'all, I we talking about it. I need you to stop. Why you not responding? Why you not responding like what now? And so yes, that's a big one. You cannot control people's responses.
Yeah. Yeah. Remember, by the time you talked about it, you done already played it in your head, and you done dealt with it, and now it comes out, and now you
Yeah,
got to give that person time to deal with it.
that's right. That
You know?
person time to process. That person time to get to a resolve with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. That's good.
So when talking to a friend,
Talk about this.
huh?
This one already. Somebody asked the same question about
Okay.
sharing too much too soon. And we
Okay.
talked about having boundaries, right? And how we let the relationship progress. And that's how you know when to start talking about things as the relationship progresses.
Okay. So what things should we look for when dating? Of course, when dating, of course, being a believer.
But
But
what
what?
other things? Yeah, what other things should you be looking for? So tonight we're talking about communication. So I think it's someone that you can grow with in communication. You can grow with as it relates to being forgiving, and also that is doesn't practice like name calling or insults or threats or other things. I think that's one of the things we should be looking for, other than being a believer, is we should also be looking for someone who is able to forgive and grow in grace with us.
Somebody want to talk about gender roles. I don't want to talk about that.
Okay, yeah, we're not gonna talk about that tonight. That's another one.
That's
We
another
can
one.
do
That's
that
another one.
another night.
We're not ignoring. That's just another one.
That's another night. Yeah, 8:40. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you forgive the person for their past before they met you? Very good question and very important point in laying a firm foundation for the relationship moving forward. Thank you
Amen.
for that. That's a great comment. Yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes, yes. How should you respond to information that has been withheld but
But
come out
yes,
later? Wow.
yes. So that's big. I mean, that's a big one. That's
Yeah.
a big one. I think that it is. I think that this one is challenging for a lot of different reasons because when you start talking about withholding information, motives sometimes come up. Why?
Yeah.
Right? Why? And I think it goes back to another one we had about what's in the heart of that person. So is it their motive to be, manipulative, vindictive, revengeful? Because if any of those underlying things are there, then that is going to be a part of your response, how you respond in it. If those other things are present. So I think that's one part of it.
Remember Smokey the Bear? Um, some of y'all might be a little too young, but Smokey the Bear used to come to our elementary school.
Yeah.
Smokey the Bear, and if the fire breaks out, you stop, drop, and roll.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so, responding to information is like that. It's like stop, dropping, and rolling. It's like processing, it's taking time to say, okay, I just got this information. Now get out my face. Let me process it. And sometimes I'm going, it's just like what's happening now. First, I'm going to process it with my emotions.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
I want to do something, but what you just gave me, either it makes me angry, it makes me sad, it causes some kind of emotional response that as a believer, I should not be acting out of.
Yes.
Right? Believers don't act out of emotional response. The Bible tells us to have a sound mind, right? He didn't give us a spirit of fear, but of peace, love, and
yeah, we
so,
should
right.
not.
So we should not allow our emotions to control our response, right? So we have to process this through our emotions first, right? But not process it through, but we have to allow our emotions to react,
to surface,
and then we process it in our thoughts, right? This information, then we really process it in our thoughts. We go through it, and then as a believer, we ask the Lord, where is He in this? What is His outcome for this? What does He want me to do with this? Right?
Can I tell a story about this?
Absolutely.
So this was a long time ago, but I remember that there was one time when and this is over 10 years ago now. So let me preface this with this is over 10 years ago. But I remember one time, me and Pastor Willie got into it because I felt like he withheld something from me, that he didn't give me the details on a friend that he had. And, I see his face. I think that, as he just said, my first response was definitely an emotional one, because I was upset that he did not tell me, what I felt like he should have been really open about. But, after, as he stated, thinking and processing, and then having a conversation with him about why I felt the way I felt. And, I think that one of the things that came through that was us getting a fresh understanding of kind of what our expectations were, what my expectations were from him, and then what his expectations were from me. And I think that it should always lead to that if you come into a situation like that, love and your love for that person. We also had Holy Ghost, so we had to help it. Because I remember we left to go pray and talk to God, I mean, it got to that extent. And so I do think that, you know, having those conversations, if the love is there and the commitment to the relationship is there, then it should be able to be worked through because you have those two really important parts of the foundation.
Absolutely. Good job.
You so cute.
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Questions?
And great questions. Thank you all for your questions tonight.
Questions tonight. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
All
Yes.
right. So yeah, so again, it's important to have healthy conversations.
Leads to healthy relationships.
Yeah, it leads to healthy relationships, and it really starts you off on a great way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's all I have for tonight, Pastor E. What about you?
Yeah. I'll just end out with saying, you know, the more complex and intimate a relationship becomes, the more this communication area gets complicated. So this is something that if you are not yet dating or you just begin to date or you're still in courting stage, wherever you are in your stage of dating, make sure that you are learning healthy communication tools for yourself. That you're
Yeah.
not having the expectation of the other person to have healthy communication cues and healthy communication tools, and you don't have it. So make sure that you're doing the work now, whether it's through, your pastors, counseling, therapy, whatever it is, to make sure you are a healthy communicator and not just expecting to marry a healthy communicator.
Yeah, yeah, awesome, Pastor E. Awesome, awesome. So, remember, the talk about about your interests, your hobbies, or whatever.
Yeah,
Those talks never end. Those are always safe, healthy conversations, and so they never end. So you will never pass those conversations because those conversations always change. Um,
hmm
what's my interest today? I could have another interest tomorrow, and
yeah,
so
we evolve. Yeah,
yeah, so continue to have those conversations, and as you date, be willing to explore some of those interests that your partner may have. If they like mini golfing and you don't like golfing, put yourself out there and go mini golf. You
I
know,
went. I went to baseball.
yeah, it's all good. You might find something that you like while you're out there. Like Pastor E. I took Pastor E to the baseball game. She didn't like baseball game, but she loved Ben Chili Bowl. She loved the food
Ooh, I let her food there. The pretzels. Oh my goodness. Yes, a lot of nice things at the baseball.
there. So yes, so amen. So God bless you guys. Thank you for joining Dating
Joining,
God's Way. Hey, join
joining
us on our prayer walk on
Saturday.
Saturday at 12 p.m. at
Yes,
Franklin Square Park. We're going to be praying for our community. We're going to be praying for the nation. We're going
yes,
to be praying for justice,
yes,
peace, and unity.
yes.
Amen. Amen. We're not going as black people, we're not going as white people, but we're going as God's people.
It's God's
Amen.
people.
As a people of God, and we want to see what God wants to produce in this earth. Amen. So yeah, so come on with us in the name of Jesus. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Love you all.
Love you all. Bye. Great time tonight.